Welcome to Key Conversations, where you get to connect with the best of the music business, unlocking the secrets to exploding your music career, presented by In the Key of Success. I'm your host, Cheryl B. Engelhardt. The conversations you're about to hear are between our special guest and participants of my MX4 course, the Marketing and Branding, Money-Making, Mentorship Mastermind for Musicians. They are singers, songwriters, composers, producers, and artists just like you, asking their burning questions of our experts while transforming their careers over 6 weeks. If you think this could be you, check out mx4course.com to schedule a free half-hour coaching call with me to see if we'd be a good fit. So, let's get started. Jaime, I wanted to see really from a, less from the specific to our government, especially because we've got some Canadian listeners here, more on the planning, just starting a career. What are some of the maybe 2 or 3 biggest tips for managing money and really planning that strategy that you're talking about for people that are starting to make money or real big goals of making money in a new endeavor or an endeavor that they've been working at and now are shifting? What sort of advice would you give just off the top? It's a very broad question, but take what you want out of that.
Yeah, sure. At a very high level, I would say first, begin with the end in mind. Be courageous enough to quantify some long-term goals, medium-term goals, short-term goals, and immediate goals. Quantify them. Get them down on paper. Put them out on Facebook. Whatever it is, be bold and courageous enough to quantify them. And then make sure that whatever actions you're taking are in alignment with those goals. Whatever those goals are, nobody's going to say, well, this is a good goal or this is a bad goal. But create a goal and then make sure that your actions are in alignment with that. If your goal is to have passive income so you can kind of, earn money while you sleep and spend the rest of your life on the beach, fine. Take action in accordance with that. And if you just start gigging, that is not consistent with passive revenue streams. So just make sure that the actions that you take are consistent with the goals that you set. Another one is this. This is, I think, a really big deal in the music industry. Avoid commoditization. Be aware of what the market is doing. The minute that you're perceived as a commodity, it drives price pressure down. You can't charge as much for what you do if you're deemed to be a commodity. So get clear on exactly what makes you unique from a consumer's point of view. And that really leads into another big thing that I would advise someone just starting out. Consider your music career to be a business entity. And know that you don't have to sacrifice artistry or self-expression or enjoyment in order to have a financially healthy career. And if you consider it to be a business entity, then you're doing much more than producing music, whether it's by performance or by composition or producing instruments or writing books about it, whatever it is that you're doing. You're looking at marketing, you're looking at branding, you're looking at your business intelligence systems, you're looking at HR. Am I going to grow this beyond myself? Am I going to have employees or independent contractors? Am I going to have strategic alliance partners? Considering your career as a business is something that's worth doing because it'll set you on the right track to achieve the goals that you want. I would say those are some of the biggies.
Yeah. No, that's great. I would love for you to dive in with an example for the commodity part of that.
Sure.
I mean, what does that really look like for an artist, and how can we stop it before we actually are like, oh, and now I'm a commodity? Because I can sort of see that might be something that just I feel like I might have been there and I didn't even know it. So I just wanted to see what you thought that actually looked like.
Sure. So Cheryl, let's take CPE music as an example. Because look at all the risks that you have as a professional performing musician and as a composer. Someone who doesn't really have a lot of exposure to your unique brand that you've created, they might hear, oh, she's a commercial composer. And they might say, oh, commercial composers are a dime a dozen. Until they get to know you and know how CPE music operates. Some of the things that are unique about CPE music are, for one, your alliances. You partner up with other people in marketing because you really get, for example, sonic branding, sonic logos. The musical piece is one important piece of a pie. And the purpose of that pie, which is marketing, is to help other companies make a lot of money.
Hmm.
And so when companies invest in their branding, one piece of which is sonic, they're making an investment upon which they expect to get a return. And you go from, oh, she's a commercial composer to, wow, she can help me make a lot of money. Unlike a lot of other professional musicians or composers who don't know how to communicate that value. So the fact you know how to communicate that value and you have formed a network of relationships that is unique, that among other things puts CPE Music head and shoulders above other I don't want to say companies, not everyone has a company, but let's say it makes CPE Music stick out in the music industry.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And especially even if you're just an artist making a record, we're talking a lot about like presenting opportunities even for a licensing agent, like not just like, here, listen to my music and put it on your TV show. It's like, no, I bet you have a pile of CDs and you want to go home. I know your show. I watch it all the time. I'm a huge fan. And I just did a record that's totally in line with the music you play. So your problem solved. Like, how can you solve problems and talk like that, communicate that? So that totally makes sense. That's how you become not a commodity, is by actually communicating your value clearly to the other, whoever that is, whether it's your whole fan base or a one-on-one interaction. So thank you for clarifying and digging in a little bit on that one. Great.
A pleasure. And you know what, Cheryl, you touched upon something which I'm just going to encapsulate in one sentence. Selling is a learnable skill. And no matter how awesome you sound in the basement, if nobody gets it, if nobody hears you and nobody understands the value of what you do, you don't have a contribution to the world because the world doesn't have an opportunity to get what you have to offer. And that's what selling is. It's a learnable skill.
I love that. Especially for this audience too. This is perfect. Let's do one more round of quick questions if you have them. Megan, I know you had a couple other questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question about health insurance. And as far as being musicians, and as I move forward, that's kind of a concern of mine. What would you suggest as far as getting health insurance that would work for me? Like, is there a particular company or a particular plan, or what do I look for that?
Great question. I'm glad you asked. I'm not going to give you the name of a particular company or a plan, but I'm going to give you a kind of a path to go on. You have to consider this for a minute from the insurance company's point of view. They're in business to limit their risk. So they collect premiums from people, and they hope that nobody gets sick, because if they do, they're going to have to pay out a ton of money. How do they limit risk? By insuring more and more people, because then you have more and more people paying premiums, but you assume that only a small percentage, are going to get really seriously ill. Some larger percentage are going to get moderately ill, and some percentage are never really, going to need, they're not going to ever claim much. So, there's a bit of a bell curve there, and they limit their risk by creating what they call pools. So because of this bell curve, they look at people in higher risk categories, people in mid-risk categories, people in low-risk categories, and they have premiums and different plans accordingly. So if you're one person looking to get covered, that's very risky for an insurance company. But if you say, I'm part of what's called a class, then it's less risky for them, because now you're included in this kind of a big pool. And one way that you can get yourself hooked up as being part of a class, if anyone has ever been employed and been covered by health insurance from their employer is hooked up to, they're saying, we're part of a class. So if you create a business and get health insurance for your business, then there's a better chance that you can be covered and deemed by the insurance company to be part of a class. And depending on a lot of variables that are really outside my skill set, you'd want to talk to an insurance professional about it. But depending on a number of variables, you might even be able to get insured even if you've had serious illnesses before, or if you have serious health conditions, because some companies and some plans are willing to overlook these things if you're part of a class, because their risk is limited. So you get to be hooked up as part of a class if you have a business, and through that business get health insurance coverage. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Appreciate
You're welcome.
Interesting. Okay, great. Let's go to Jenna. Any last questions?
Well, I just want to know, I also teach music, and I want to know in terms of, because I always get dinged, well, not dinged, but like I owe taxes the last couple of years from teaching. So I want to know like how I could like reduce that, or it's just kind of have to make sure I put some money aside.
Great question.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, I don't know a lot about Canadian tax law.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I'm going to answer you what I know based on U.S. tax law. And
That's fine, yeah.
So a couple of things to consider. One is in the U.S. we have what's called a business use of home deduction.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to spend any more than you're currently spending, but you might be able to get a deduction for something that you're not currently deducting. There is one word that's very important in the Internal Revenue Code about the business use of home deduction, and that is the word exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a space in your home that is used exclusively for this trade or business, and if you're going to take this deduction, I would take lots of photos and stuff, so any auditor coming in would be like, oh yeah, it's not like if you sit down at your dining room table, put your laptop there and say, this is where I compose. No auditor is going to buy that.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of the reality of whether you personally eat dinner at your dining room table, if you swear you always eat on the couch, they're not going to care. They're going to be like, come on, you eat dinner at that dining room table. This isn't your office.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't your studio. But if you have a room in your home or a part of a room that you use exclusively for your music teaching business, and any stranger who doesn't know music would come in and be like, oh yeah, that very clearly looks like it's exclusively for her music teaching, then you're entitled to a number of deductions as part of your business use of home. So let's say that square footage comprises 20% of the total square footage of your home, 20% of your electricity, 20% of your gas, 20% of your water, 20% of your homeowner's insurance, 20% of your mortgage interest if you pay mortgage, 20% of your rent if you pay rent. All of those things become deductible. And if you have any expenses that are only for that space, like I just got a chair for this space and only for this space, then you get 100% of that deduction through your business. So you want to look for things so you have the business use of home deduction, but you also have, if you have any repairs and maintenance that are only for that space, then you get 100% of that deduction. If you get a repair for your general home, like the water heater, you get 20% of that repair expense. So the idea is not to spend more so you can deduct more, but the idea is to look at what you're already spending on and see if any of that is legitimately applicable to your trade or business.
Okay. Yeah.
What about if you teach? I know there are a lot of musicians out there that are teaching as supplement. I mean, I count that as part of my music business is teaching. What about if you're not teaching in your home? You're teaching at their homes or at a studio or something. What are other ways to?
Travel mileage.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yeah. Yeah, because essentially your base of operations is your home. See, what you can't do, you can't deduct commuting costs. So if you worked someplace and you always went back and forth there every day, then that's deemed by the IRS to be a commute, non-deductible. But if what you can deduct is from your base of operations to other destinations. So if you go to your office every day, that's commuting, that's not deductible. But if you're at your office and then you need to go to a client over in this other city, your mileage between your office and the client in the other city is deductible. Well, if you work from home, like if your base of operations is from home, you do your accounting from home, you do your composition from home, you do everything else from home, your podcast recording from home. If you leave that as your base of operations to go teach someone, that's not a commute. That's leaving your base of operations to go teach someone. That's deductible mileage, and the mileage rates are getting higher every year. It's well over 50 cents in 2015. You can go to irs.gov and look that up. If you're going to deduct mileage, keep contemporaneous records and don't have your business pay for the gas. It's one or the other. It's actual expenses or mileage, and you get to pick whichever one is more favorable for you. More often than not, mileage is more favorable.
Interesting. Awesome. Thank you. And Jenna, the
You're
other
welcome.
thing just that I know I'm doing and I started to do this year is to pay you can set up to pay your taxes quarterly, so it's not quite a big chunk at the end of the year. So I've set up to do that, and that's been helpful, and there are ways to do that. I always hire a person to do my taxes because I don't want to miss anything. So you might want to talk to someone, I don't know, like Jaime, to see how that actually gets set up. And then the other thing is, we were talking about the T. Harv Ekers, the jars. You can actually, make your own jar, work with those percentages to have a jar that is a savings account, but it's what you tap into to help the taxes, so it's not this huge cost one time a year. So those are the two things that I would also put in. I don't know if Jaime would agree with that or not. I'll let her say or not, but those helped me a little bit.
I would. I've worked, I've been seeing people's books for over 11 years now, and a number of entrepreneurs, whether they're freelancers or established, corporations, a number of entrepreneurs have a separate bank account. A separate physical bank account just for what they expect to pay in taxes, because they don't want to see it in their regular operational accounts. So they have a set aside, and if it turns out to be too much, fine. They'll either keep it in there or move the excess back into their operational account. And if it's not enough, fine, but at least it's not going to be a big shock, and only a little bit more will be needed from the operational account. In the U.S., that's a pretty predictable formula. And don't forget in the U.S., you're going to need to send in estimated payments to your state as well as the IRS if you live in a state that has an income tax.
Right. Awesome. Thanks, Jaime. Brad, any last questions for you?
Just to kind of go with Jenna's question there, if I have a room like this one, I used to teach voice also, but say I had voice students coming in and I'm doing composing and I'm doing some other stuff, but I'm conducting my business. I have this umbrella LLC that I do everything in, and conducting, music business, and I have another business where I sell stuff on Amazon, but it's all under this one umbrella, and I do it all in this room. Is that the exclusivity, or do I have to have individual rooms for each one, or you see what I'm getting at?
I know exactly what you're getting at. No, it's you have to track it right, but it's enough that the area is used exclusively for your trade or business. Now, I think you and I can agree that you're not going to sell something from Amazon by using your piano. You're going to sell something from Amazon by using your computer. So when it comes to flowing the deduction through, get the square footage of the musical portion of the room and say, this is the part that I use for, the musical trades. And on the other hand, no, you said they're all under one legal LLC?
Yes.
Oh, well, yeah, just use the space. You don't have to split it up. Sorry, if there were two separate LLCs or two separate businesses, yeah, you'd split it up. But there's one legal entity. So, yeah, no, just take the square footage, and you don't need to split anything because it's all on one tax return.
Okay, great, thank you.
Awesome. So we've just got a couple more minutes. Megan, did you have 3 questions you had emailed me, or did you get them all answered?
I got the second one answered with one of the other questions that were asked.
Perfect.
So I'm good.
That's
cool.
Awesome. Jenna, did you get all of your questions answered?
I did, thank you. Yeah.
Awesome.
Sure.
So, Jaime, any last words that you thought you might want to share that I haven't touched on yet?
Thank you for that opportunity, Cheryl. I'd like to share a couple of things that I hope can make a great contribution to the listeners. And that is one of how much I agree with you, that it really all starts with, if you're going to have a sustainable musical career that really works, not only artistically, which is, that's all up to you, but if it's something that works in reality, that works financially, it really starts with getting clear on your relationship, not only to your art, but your relationship to money and managing things and business. And if you've got this internal thing going on that says, I'm not a money person, I'm an artist, or I was never taught about money, I'm an artist, get clear on that real quick, because artistry and financial abundance are not mutually exclusive, and it's not just for the Picassos of the world, or, you don't have to buy into the starving artist mentality just because of a lot of other people do.
Yes.
So getting clear on your relationship with money first and foremost is something I strongly advocate, and I agree so much, Cheryl, with your approach on that. And I encourage everyone to be bold and ask questions of their own business. Who are my best customers? Who are my best referral sources? What expenses are actually bringing me a return? So it doesn't have to necessarily just be about, oh man, I have to keep track of my numbers because I have to send them into the IRS, now get them off my back. That's a burden. And it needs to be done in order to be in integrity with, how business is designed to be done in the US. But it doesn't have to be a burden. It can actually be a profit center. Your financial records can be a gold mine, a treasure trove. I was doing some financial analysis for $1 billion company. And I just did this other thing to look at their revenues and their patterns a little bit of a different way. And I had a room full of people say, oh, bleep, I never realized that. Like, I was looking at their patterns and everything was kind of parallel. And then there was, in this one category of one of their services, there was this huge gap. This line went up and that bar went down. And there was a huge revenue opportunity that nobody knew about in $1 billion company because nobody ever looked at the numbers that way. So what I encourage you to do is get, if you don't have one already, create a bookkeeping or accounting system, get it done right, and input enough of the details on a transaction by transaction basis. So you can pull some magnificent reports like income by referral source, income by sales channel. Maybe, if you're selling a product to many, many customers, maybe not a single customer stands out, but maybe you want to know, like I said earlier, Amazon versus eBay. Is there a geographic region from which sales come the most? Get that information from your data. Find out why. Work with, if you sell anything online, get some analytics. Download them, have a look at them, or find someone who can teach you those skills. I'd be happy to have a conversation with anyone like that. And teach you those skills and a couple of key things to do in Excel to go zip, 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 and go, wow, 75% of my sales are coming from west of the Mississippi. Why is that? I don't know, but maybe I should network there. Maybe I should go on to LinkedIn. Maybe I should pick up the phone and say, hey, do you know anybody out in California? They seem to like my music. I don't know why, but I'm running with it.
Yeah. And plan tours and radio, and that's, a lot of people don't know where to start touring. It's like, okay, that's a great way to see that, oh, people are buying my stuff there. Yeah. So it's really applicable. And it's what we were talking about before. It drives the next actions. It's all goal-driven, action-driven. You can figure out what those goals are and what the actions are based on what's actually so right now, which is kind of cool. So.
Yes, exactly. It's completely action-driven. I love that phrase, Cheryl. Drive the next action. You never want to go to any trouble to pull some numbers just to know them. Oh, please. We all have lives here. Pull some numbers so you can drive an action, and hopefully an action that will bring you both artistic fulfillment and financial abundance.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you guys, Jaime actually wrote the book on QuickBooks. Jaime, tell me exactly what it's called again, because I don't have it in front of me.
Sure. The full name is Intuit QuickBooks Enterprise Edition 12.0 Cookbook for Experts.
There you go.
I just call it QuickBooks for Experts. It's a step-by-step illustrated guide for, I would say, underutilized and little-known features of QuickBooks that people who have already had experience with QuickBooks are ready for, if they're ready to make money with their information.
Yeah, Jaime was integral in getting me to switch over from an Excel sheet I had been using for 10 years that I had created and morphed myself to actually bookkeeping, like real bookkeeping and seeing transactions and reports and everything. So I'm like, I super dork out on that stuff like once a week now, which is really great. Thanks to Jaime. And so you guys, everyone on this call, thank you so much. Their questions were really great. Jaime and I were talking about some of them earlier, and she said that she gets asked these questions a lot, so they were perfect. So thank you. And Jaime, thank you so much. You guys can find out more about Jaime's company, tier1services.net. But this is valuable for me. I'm like taking notes over here. Like really, really awesome. So thank you so much.
It's such a pleasure. You're very, very welcome.
Yeah, well, everyone have a fantastic night. And Jaime, again, thank you
You're so welcome, Cheryl. And it was a pleasure to meet everyone tonight and to hear your questions.
Thank you, Jamie.
You're very welcome. Good luck to everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right, keep listening. Next week, we're going to be talking with Mr. Michael Whalen, an Emmy-winning composer who is also an expert in the field of monetizing your music on YouTube and elsewhere in the world. He's also a really cool guy and a career coach, so you can really get a lot from listening to just how he talks to musicians. It's kind of phenomenal, so stay tuned for that next week. Please don't forget to rate and comment on iTunes and Stitcher Radio if you like this podcast. It's the best way to keep it going, get more subscribers, and continue to share this awesome information with the indie music community. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. All of the music on this podcast has been created by yours truly. The theme song is called Inevitably, written with Cameron Ernst and produced by Joey Ock. You can find all the songs, plus more information on my music career at CherylBE.com. If you want to be one of the reasons I can keep this podcast and my blog Living on Gigging going, then head to patreon.com/CBEmusic. There, you can contribute $1, $2, $5 for the creation of each of these free musician resources. Together, we can keep them coming and inspire other creative people to do what they love and do it well. Again, that's patreon.com/CBEmusic. Key Conversations is sponsored in part by Bandzoogle. They make it easy to build a beautiful website for your music. Their step-by-step system gets you online in minutes, and you can choose from hundreds of mobile-friendly themes and customize them with their easy point-and-click editor. All the features you could possibly imagine for a professional website are built in. So, because you are a Key Conversations podcast listener, you get a special 3-month free trial just for you. Go to www.inthekeyofsuccess.com/resources and click on the Bandzoogle logo to access your free extended trial.